everyone, and welcome to episode 18 of the Knitty Heather podcast. My name is Heather, and I'm coming to you from Kent, Washington, where I live with my husband Tom and our Cavalier King Charles Spaniel Pepper. This is my podcast where I talk all about everything I am working on knitting and everything I learn along the way. I always love sharing tips and tricks I pick up, and I also love featuring wonderful makers, especially those who dye yarn, make project bags, make progress keepers, and other yarny accessories. If you are a new viewer, welcome. Thank you so much for stopping by. I hope you enjoy it. And if you are a returning viewer, thank you so much for coming back. I really appreciate you spending a little bit of time with me. If you would like to follow me, I am at Knitty Heather on Instagram. I always love chatting with people there and seeing what everyone is working on. Anything I talk about as far as yarn, patterns, and accessories will be listed and linked in the description box below. Today is Friday, March 5th, 2021, and I have a lot to share with you, so let's get started. Today I am wearing my drop stitch scarf by Christine Vogel. I believe it is a free pattern I found on Ravelry. I kind of wanted something fun and lacy with some drop stitches. I still have a little bit of my leftover yarn. The yarn I used was Knit 1 Crochet 2, their tie-dye sock. And this is the colorway 1574. So kind of lots of greens and browns and this pretty pink and even a little bit of chartreusey yellow. Here's another look at it. I made it just long enough where I can just wear it down around my shoulders. It just adds a little bit of color and a little bit of warmth around my neck. And it was a super fun knit. I highly encourage you to check out this pattern if you ever want to learn how to do drop stitches. They are very easy to predict and manage in this pattern. It's very predictable and repetitive. So it's an excellent first pattern if you ever wanted to try the look of a drop stitch pattern. This was the Drop Stitch Scarf by Christine Vogel. Today I am also wearing the first pair of Desert Vista Dyework socks I ever knit. This was my January 2020 entry for her 6th annual sock club. The colorway is called Bed Knobs and Broomsticks. The pattern I used was Toe Up Gusset Socks by Stacey Perry of Very Pink Knits. They are knit in stockinette, worked from the toe up with gusset increases, a heel flap, and a 2x2 rib for the cuff. Now on to my finished object. I have a full pair of socks finished, half of another pair of socks finished, and a cowl to share with you. First are my Desert Vista Dyework socks for the month of February. Here they are. This is the colorway Happy Birthday Dr. Seuss by Desert Vista Dyeworks. This was my February entry for her 7th annual monthly sock club. I chose to use a yellow mini for the toes, heels, and cuffs, and I think they went absolutely perfectly with the yellow stripe that is in the main yarn. I think this mini came from her March mini set that I purchased from her last year. I started these toe up with a wedge-shaped toe. I did an afterthought heel and 10 rounds of a 2x2 rib, and I used the simple stretchy bind off found on verypink.com. She has a great tutorial for how I bind off my toe up socks. So I knit up this big long tube. I marked between this blue and gray stripe for my afterthought heel, did the cuff, and came back and knit up my afterthought heel. I did 5 rounds of plain knitting, and then I decreased it, alternating decrease and plain knitting rounds until I was down to 12 stitches on each needle, so 24 stitches total. And that seems to work really well with this yarn. This is her 75-25 Viso sock base. And I did wear these on my first day of preschool earlier this week. The kids loved them. This is Happy Birthday Dr. Seuss by Desert Vista Dye Works. Next is my half-finished object. I finished the first of my Rainbow Connection socks. This pattern is by Kay Litton, the Crazy Sock Lady. And I am using more Desert Vista Dye Works for these socks as well. This was her Winter Rainbow collection. It was a set of 250-gram skeins. It is the self-striping rainbowy yarn and then the gray contrasting color. She has you do the cuff. I did 16 rounds of 2x2 rib for the cuff, a heel flap and gusset, and a rounded toe, all in the contrasting gray mini. And then let's see if I can twist it so you can see the pattern a little bit better. It's a very fun slip stitch pattern. You alternate every 2 rounds between the gray and the rainbow self-striping. And it is so much fun to knit. It really flies off the needles. I have about half of the second cuff knit up. And so I do want to finish the second sock for this pair by the end of this month so that I can cast on her spring rainbow socks on April 1st. One more quick look. Really love these rainbow tones. Each of her rainbow collections has a slightly different take on the rainbow colors. This is the Rainbow Connection socks by Kay Litton, knit up in Desert Vista Dye Works Winter Rainbow set. My last finished object is my Heart and Cowl. This is a pattern by Helen Stewart, The Curious Handmaid. Here it is. This is part of her 2020 Knit Vent collection, and it is specifically designed for a set of Advent minis. I used my 25 20-gram minis from my Legacy Fiber Art Christmas 2020 Advent. She has you start with a little bit of ribbing, and then you kind of go between striping 2 colors and then doing this pretty lacy motif in 2 different colors. Since I had 25 minis and this pattern only called for 24, I did add just 1 stripe of plain stockinette just so that I could incorporate all the colors from this set. But I think it looks just fine. You can't really tell. I did wash and block this so the lace opened up pretty nicely. I'm very happy with how it turned out. I think this should go with almost anything with all these pretty colors in there. It was an absolute pleasure to knit, and I think it would look really cool with even just a couple colors going back and forth, or more solid colors would give it totally a different look. I think the stripes would come out a little bit more pronounced if you had more solid or tonal colors. So this might be on my list to knit again someday with a different set of minis. I'm very happy with how this turned out, and I cannot wait to wear it. It should be nice and warm and cozy around my neck. I only cast on just over half of the number of stitches the pattern actually calls for. So it is actually a really wide kind of infinity length scarf almost, but I wanted more of a cowl that wore a little bit tighter to my neck. So that was the other modification I made, was just to cast on fewer stitches. As long as you cast on the multiple she calls for, you can make it as wide or as narrow as you please. This was the Heart and Cowl by Helen Stewart, knit up in Legacy Fiber Arts 2020 Christmas Advent set. Now on to my works in progress. My first work in progress I'd like to tell you about today are my March Desert Vista Dye Works socks for her 7th annual monthly sock club. I have them in my sock monkey bag from MLD Threads, and I decided I would clip on some of my light bulb stitch markers onto the zipper because I usually use those to mark for afterthought heels with these socks, so I figured I might as well keep them with the bag that I prefer to use for these socks. Here they are so far. The colorway I am using is Speckled Jelly Beans. I am doing these 2 at a time, toe up, and I am using a pink contrasting mini from one of her mini sets last year. So every single one of these stripes is going to be speckled. So that will be kind of cool. I did the toes in the pink. I did just a wedge-shaped toe. And I finished this purple speckled stripe, and I'm just beginning, I don't know how well you can see, I'm just beginning a blue speckled stripe. And then there is also a yellow, an orange, and a pink stripe. Here's a look at the yarn and the cake one more time. So this should be a really fun pair to have done in time for Easter. I will use my contrasting mini for an afterthought heel and the cuff. I might do a little bit longer of a cuff this time, maybe more like 15 rounds. We'll see by the time I work up to it what I feel like doing. But I thought these went really well together. And I am definitely in the mood for some springy colors, so it was very fun to cast these on. I will continue to work up the foot and then mark for my afterthought heel, of course. And then I will keep working up the leg and do my cuff. Maybe this time I'll do a 1x1 cuff too, just to make things a little bit different. But these are my March Desert Vista Dye Work socks. This is the colorway Speckled Jelly Beans. Next, I'd like to tell you about a new cast on that I am super excited about. I showed the yarn last week. This is from Lolo Did It's Upstairs and Downstairs Downton Abbey collection. This is in reference to Lady Edith. This is called Left at the Altar, and the contrasting mini is called Jilted. And I am knitting the first pair of socks from Mina Phillips, the Knitting Expat's new sock club called Around the World in 8 Socks. This first pair of socks is inspired by the city of London. She chose 8 cities that she has a connection to as inspiration for her new designs, and she will be releasing a new pattern inspired by these 8 cities every month between now and October 2021. So I'm super excited. I'm hoping that I'm able to knit these up every month and keep up with it. Here is what the London socks look like so far. I used 20 rounds of a 2x2 rib with the contrasting mini, and then now I am working in the main color. It is a very geometric knit and purl texture so far. I am using my Donut Progress Keeper from Sucre Miniatures, which goes perfectly with the project bag I have this in from Mountain State Stitches, my donut bag from Mountain State Stitches on Etsy. This has been really fun to knit so far. I am only knitting across the front of the sock, the back. I am leaving plain stockinette, but she does give you the option, if you would like the pattern across the whole sock, then just repeat the stitch pattern across the back of the sock. She gives you the option to knit these cuff down or toe up. As you can see, I am choosing to do these cuff down this time. And in her pattern, she recommends a German short row heel, which I think I will do. She says you can use whatever heel that you prefer, but I think I will go with her German short row heel because it is a nice heel. I am deciding if I want to do it all in garter or in the regular stockinette style though. Let me know in the comments below, what do you think? Should I do it in stockinette or garter? The only difference with garter is that you knit every row instead of purling across the wrong side rows. Here is one last look at it. I am using my Addi Turbo Sock Rocket needles, very smooth metal needles. Here's a good shot of it. It's very interesting, a very interesting pattern. I cannot wait to see it knit up a little bit further. And I'm very happy with how this yarn is knitting up too. This is her 8515 L'Original base that all of her Downton Abbey collection was from. This was her January colorway for her Downton Abbey sock set. This was the last one I've received, and I am super excited to keep going with these. I hope to show you a little bit more progress next week. But these are my London socks by Mina Phillips from her newest sock club, Around the World in 8 Socks. knit up in Lolo Did It, Jilted, and the main color is called Left at the Altar. My next work in progress is in this cute sock bag from Zigzag Stitches on Etsy. It's one of those nice drawstring ones. And I just cast on the second sock in my little baby mini advent sock collection that I am trying to knit for my cousin's baby that was just born at the end of January. My idea is to knit 25 little baby socks that my cousins can use as a little advent calendar. Maybe they just hang them up and display them, or they might put a treat in them as he gets older, however they want to use them. But I thought a cute little set of socks that he can play with and do whatever they want with at Christmas time would be kind of fun. As you can see, I'm using a little Winnie the Pooh stitch marker. This came from my Fangirl Fibers Disney Stitch Marker Advent Calendar. And I have just done the cuff. I do 10 rounds of a 2x2 rib. The pattern that I'm following is the Baby Sock pattern by Sue Stokes of Legacy Fiber Arts. You can find that pattern on Ravelry or on their website. And I am using the leftovers of the Legacy Fiber Arts Advent Calendar I purchased this last holiday season. I'm just picking them at random at this point. This was the second one I pulled. And so I used that advent calendar for my heart and cowl that I just showed, and I had quite a bit left over, and I thought this would be a good way to use up a little more of those leftovers. I will still have a little bit to add into one of my scrappy blankets even after I'm done binding these little socks off, but just thought I'd show you what they look like while they are in progress. This is the cuff. I am using my Knitter's Pride Royale DPNs. I think DPNs are the easiest when doing a really tiny little circumference like this. I will try to have these done by November. This is only my second one, so that they can have them for the holiday season. I did get a really great suggestion from a viewer, thank you Karen, who thought maybe a crochet chain would be a good way to make a loop. In one of my recent podcast episodes, I was asking for advice about how to make a little loop for something like this that they can hang them individually. And I do think actually a crochet chain might be the best idea. So stay tuned to see how that is going to work out. I will show you when I have that in place. But here is just my baby sock. The Baby Sock pattern by Sue Stokes, knit up in the Legacy Fiber Arts 2020 Advent Calendar. Next, I would like to tell you about another new cast on. This is the Round and Round Cowl, another pattern by Kay Litton, the Crazy Sock Lady. As you can see, it's sort of starting to come through the pattern. This is a companion pattern to her Heel Toe Dosey Do sock pattern, and I think she's got a pair of fingerless mitts called the Swing Your Partner, something like that, that all kind of have this same design. She designed this specifically to be used with scraps or minis, and what I'm doing is I am knitting these up in my Fade Advent Calendar from Nicole of Hue Loco. I have just completed 4 colors. She gives you really good instructions in the pattern for how to make some minor adjustments if you're using 24 minis from an advent calendar, how many pattern repeats. She starts you off with some ribbing, and then it's really just a 2-round repeat. But like I said, she does give you some advice as far as how many times to repeat those 2 rounds in each color if you're using 24. As you can see, they are fading very beautifully. They're kind of in some pink tones now, but I guarantee they will go through many, many colors. As this grows, as I go through each mini, I did start with day 1 and I will end on day 24. So day 1 was my bottom ribbing, and then day 24 will be my top ribbing, of course. So colors 2 through 23 are going to be all of this same really pretty pattern. Almost makes kind of a zigzag chevron shape. My progress keeper I am using is a Pop-Tart from Sucre Miniatures. And I have this in my Simpsons, kind of a large drawstring bag from Fate's Thread. I'm kind of a huge fan of The Simpsons, and I thought this was a really fun fabric. I already have my next color wound up. This is what the next color will be. So it is kind of getting a little bit darker. Nicole of Hue Loco really is a master at fade, so I really cannot wait to see all of these colors come together. Hopefully I can keep up with doing one section every day with each color. This is the first 4, and then this is color number 5 that hopefully I will get to include later today. This is the Round and Round Cowl by Kay Litton, the Crazy Sock Lady. Moving along with my last few Advent projects. This is the progress on my Noah shawl. As you can see, since last time I have done this pretty lacy section, and then I just finished this green bauble section. This is the last bauble section. From now on, it is just garter stitch, fading the last 4 colors. This is a pattern by Devin Ventry, Knitty McPurley. My Angel Progress Keeper is from Pitter Patter Polymer. And this beautiful yarn is from Clark and L. This was her 2020 Christmas Advent Calendar on her sparkle base, which has been really fun to work with. This is my next color. I am down to my last 4 colors, and again, I believe the idea is for them to kind of fade. So I will be mostly just knitting. There are not any more slip stitch or lace or bauble rounds left. It is all beautiful, beautiful knitting, which I'm looking forward to. I love the look of these baubles, but each row takes about 10 times as long to do because there's about 10 stitches crammed into one of these baubles. But I do love the look of it. This has been a very fun design. I love patterns like this that have different stitch patterns and different things going on with each color. I'm hoping to have this done relatively soon. I'm not putting any pressure on myself, but I would like to get this off the needles. I think this will go with just about anything. It's going to be huge, so it'll be fun to experiment with different ways I can wear this. At the end of the pattern, she has you make 2 tassels using some of your leftovers. And I cannot wait to try doing that. I've never made tassels before, but I think that would look really cool to mix my favorite colors of the leftovers and add those to the end of the shawl. Let me know in the comments below, have you ever made tassels? And if you have, please give me any advice you can spare. I would love any advice to set me up for success when making tassels. I don't think I've ever made a tassel for anything, much less for a shawl. So I'm excited to try it, but a little nervous. Let me know if you have any tips and tricks. Once again, this is the Noah Shawl by Devin Ventry, Knitty McPurley, knit up in Clark and L's 2020 Advent Calendar. Last but certainly not least is the last shawl I am making from one of my Advent calendars. This is the Monet Shawl by Melina of Rye Flower Knits. This is knit up in Hypnotic Yarns 2020 Advent. Now hers is pretty much all these tonal colors, and this pattern was designed specifically for this Advent. So I'm really excited to see all these colors play together with these pretty stripes. So I did this first section in the gray. This is kind of a ribbed section, and then the purple is a really pretty lace pattern. And then from here on out, it's going to be a lot of these lacy stripes with some of these cable twists. You can kind of see this cable twist in the blue starting to come through. There will be one stripe in all of the rest of the colors that look just like this. My next color is this really pretty yellowy green. I have this watermelon progress keeper to mark the halfway point just while I'm looking at the chart, just to make sure I'm ending where I should be halfway through. And this really colorful tart progress keeper is from Charms by Charlie on Etsy. So this pattern has 4 sections. The gray is section 1, this purple is section 2, and then section 3 is kind of the main body with all of these stripes. I hope to have a few more stripes to show you next week. Then the last section, section 4, is another lacy section where you use the full skein that you got on Christmas from her advent calendar. So her advent calendar had 24 minis plus a full skein. And it's just going to be really fun to see all of these come together. I really love stripy, scrappy, colorful things like this, as you can probably tell. This is a real pleasure to knit so far. It's going to end up being rather large, a lot of stitches on the needles, but I'm super excited to keep working through this. This is the Monet Shawl by Melina of Rye Flower Knits, knit up in Hypnotic Yarns 2020 Advent Calendar. Well, I think that is about all I have for you this week. Thank you so much for spending a little bit of time with me. I really appreciate it. Thank you so much for watching. Please don't forget to hit that like and subscribe button. That would really mean a lot to me. Let me know what you are working on. I would love to hear from you. I always love getting inspiration about new yarns and patterns from other people. You can leave me a comment or message me on Instagram. I am at Knitty Heather on Instagram, and I would love to hear from you. Please let me know if you have any feedback for the podcast as well. I would love to hear your thoughts. But until next time, be well, be kind, and happy knitting. We'll see you in the next one. Bye.